wena drive.
Now that Prasa is trying again to get the trains back, are they really ready? Can we trust the system? And this is the system that really took a number of us. We relied on it, completely depended on it. And it failed us at some point. And before we knew it, it completely collapsed. Why? Let's get some answers. My name is Isaac. I've got a very important guest today. His name is State of Lucky Montana. He's a parliamentarian as we speak, an authority in public transport issues in South Africa, and that's the reason why we have him here today. You know that we don't do interviews here, we have conversations. So we're going to have a conversation with him, go through a number of things. We're going to talk about his tenure, both in Prasa and the department and his movement. But I'm also interested in finding out about his submissions at the Zondo Commission, because there were certain things that were dropped there and we could not speak about them because the commission, I think he asked at the time that he asked for a cross-examination. And there were issues. So we're going to learn a lot about that. But obviously, we also would do a little bit on some policy analysis. What are those policy deposits that he would want to see? But remember, he's also, as a parliamentarian, he is a member of the MK party. And he's responsible. He's an authority, like I said. And in fact, we must talk about this because MK Party has got all the big wigs of, transport. There's Brian there, there's Gamma there, and there's you. What a fortunate party can this be? Aki, welcome very much. Thank you very much for being here.
Very much, my brother. Thanks for having me.
It's been forever. It's been forever. The last time I saw you.
A long while, yes.
It's been a long, long while.
Well, I remember vividly the first day when you forced yourself into my office and you wanted this was in around 2004.
Yeah, 2004. Yeah.
And you say I'm an authority on public transport, and but I'm sitting with a man here. I mean, if I see Isaac, I remember the old man, the late Stephen Sangweni.
Yeah, man.
Those were two people who were really
championing
transformation of public transport. They had enormous networks in the taxi industry, commuter organizations, in the media. And it was not fashionable to talk about public transport at that time. But you guys were already there. You were doing it. So I learned a lot as well. And I was inspired that there were people who were championing this thing. And I came to join hands. And yeah, thanks very much.
Man, I really, really appreciate this. So let's get on to it, because you and I, it looks like we need a couple of shows to have a lot of information on the archives, because we will always go back to stuff that you say and pick it up and use whatever that is usable for public transport in South Africa. So I don't know if people know you properly, you guys become professionals, you become officials, and you become father. We see you in your ties in parliament, but who's lucky? Who's lucky? Montana, Tepo.
Well, I don't know. I think through the journey of my life, and in particularly after I left Prasa, I came to know more about myself than even I thought I knew myself. Born and bred in Mamelodi, brought up by my grandmother. I always call in one of the press conferences I had, which I had to cancel because the leadership had asked me. I think you remember when I left Prasa, I was meant to address a press briefing. Already everyone was there, and yeah, I think I got so many calls in the morning saying, no, don't do it. I said, but I'm not fighting anyone. I'm trying to put the record. And ministers called me, say, please don't.
Please don't.
But it was only when I got a message that the president says, don't do it. And this was President Zuma.
Zuma at the time, yeah.
And so I couldn't cancel the press conference. I used it, the initial part, to just pay tribute to my family who had supported me, people who have made me. And I described my grandmother as a lioness. This is on my mom's side of the family. They brought me up. My grandmother encouraged me. She treated me in a particular way. So in a way, she shaped who I am.
Mm-hmm.
She inculcated values of respect, dignity, humility. But she was a fighter.
Right.
And so I didn't have the privilege to meet my grandfather and my father on my mom's side of the family. So it was a woman-headed family led by my grandmother who worked for us. And what a fighter.
No, man.
What a fighter. I think very fair, committed to justice. But when I described her in that press conference as a lioness, in a true sense of the word, a lioness that will protect and defend its cubs. So we grew up in that environment. Even when I was going to varsity, she would encourage me. I think if there's one person who played such a major role in my life, and I think it's proper that my grandmother is we called them Ma.
Right.
And I called my mom sister, like we do.
Yeah. All of
those of us who were brought up by our grandmothers. So she's her name, or rather the way we call them, Wamkabela. So when you look at the Mkabela or Makubela's surname, you go deeper, you find who she is. And of course, over the years, she taught me who she is. And if I were to summarize my grandmother, because I think she shaped almost the way I look at the world. Even when I fight with someone or I'm angry with someone, it's like I'm seeing her telling me, no, you can't respond that way.
Cool.
So she's, to this very day, she remains my reference on everything. So I would salute her. When you talk about the Makobelas or Mkabela, their praise, you say Mugwena, Hulele, Marinzan Hlanga, Montiamona. So if I said that, wherever she's sleeping, she's smiling because she knows that I'm paying tribute and my respect. And of course, she gave birth to my mom, who I'm the last. My mom had 3 kids. I've got 2 sisters. I'm the last born, and she would remind everyone that this is my last born. And
spoiled.
She spoiled me. She taught me quite a lot of things, and sometimes when I come back and I would greet her, she would stand there because she'd insisted that come and kiss me. She taught me football, by the way, my mom. A big fan of Kaizer Chiefs.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm from Mamelodi, but people don't understand where I come from. And so she'll tell everyone, Kimujali is my last born. And I don't think I've experienced such love. And sometimes I ask myself, did I do everything for my mom? I thought I did, but I think that when I look back, I look what she did, and sometimes should go and meet with her friends. And in the old Pretoria under apartheid, my my mom would meet with her friends in Stradom Square.
Right.
She'd take me along. So come when she went for the soccer games over the weekend. Sometimes should take me with. And there are days when she'd want to leave me behind, and I would cry. And
I'm sure you would.
And the car to turn back to come and say, no, prepare him quickly. But yeah, so in the 70s, I saw quite big games of Kaizer Chiefs, Orlando Pirates. I was always with my mom. So she's late now, and of course on my dad's side, my dad is ke Matlala, ke Bakoni ba Ntšhidikgolo. So ke mmina Tlhantlhagane. So, and I said to Justice Zondo that when you look at both my dad and my mom's side of the family, these are courageous people, and they've instilled that sense of responsibility, the sense to serve others, and I think over time, and as we continue with the discussion,
Yeah.
So I grew up in Mamelodi, and of course, the big thing that shaped my life, though, other than family, was politics.
Yeah.
Because I think at the age of 14, things were happening in the townships. I joined COSAS, and then organizations were banned. Then we created what we called the Mamelodi Student Congress, MASCO. Quite a lot of the leadership who led MASCO were from COSAS, and most of them were either arrested or ran away from the townships and went to exile. Then I was charged with the responsibility in the middle of the state of emergency to be the coordinator of the Mamelodi Student Congress. And of course, that put me into big trouble.
I'm sure.
There's a general who in the army, I think he's late now. He was in military intelligence, and he was coordinating all these activities of the police and the army in Mamelodi. His name was General Bosi Boshoff. And he harassed me. he kicked the doors at my home, and I spent the last part, I think, between 1987 and 1990. I was more in hiding.
Yeah.
And at that time, of course, I'd come into contact with the ANC, joined this underground movement, not the army, but the political underground, doing quite a lot of work. And I think since then I've never looked back. Public duty defines what I do. Of course, when you read out there, people have quite a lot to say.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you don't judge yourself.
Yeah.
You must allow your peers to evaluate whether you've made a meaningful contribution.
Right.
But when I look back, I'm proud of the little contribution, the small contribution I've made to our beloved country. And I think I see myself as still young. I'll continue to make a contribution. So that's me. That's
there we go.
Lucky Montana. I think it gives you a sense of where I come from. Thank you.
Yeah, no. That's helpful. I wanted that on record because Majitako Mamelodi. So it's Vusi. The Vusi Matlala guy.
Well, I'm Matlala, but there's no relation. Well, of course, Bakoni, as you know, but Matlala, that those who come on this Kukune side. My grandfather came from Matlala Thaba. Just as you pass Sisheho, Hamashashani, that mountain, yeah. So, but that is a story for another day. And that's in my book I'm writing.
You're writing.
Well, I've been writing for the last 10 years. I've been writing.
So we must plan that review.
Absolutely.
We must plan that review. So I want us to get into some serious stuff. So to my viewers out there, this we are deliberate about this conversation. This conversation shapes what we are about. This conversation is going to bring out very, very important things that I think public transport, especially the commuters in South Africa, we have given up hope. The type of service that we have eventually settled for is not what we're supposed to get. But because the system gives us this, we succumbed and actually, settled for this nonsense. And I am saying nonsense because we deserve better. And I would want us to have this conversation so that Mr. Montana can educate us, but also free us from this settlement. We settled at some place where we're not supposed to be. So we're gonna move ourselves up a little bit. So stay tuned. Keep it there. Keep it locked. Don't go anywhere. Grab your coffee, sit down, and let's have this conversation. So Lucky, I want us to deal with the. I read something from someone very prominent, one of the CEOs, who said on ENCA now recently, who said Prasa or stability at Prasa was only felt when you were still the group CEO there. And she was adamant. She went straight and said that after Lucky Montana left Prasa, everything collapsed. And I'm glad that that's not a statement that came from you. It came from somebody else. But I wanna double click on this to say, those of us who've seen your work, worked in your environment, we at least know what you're capable of. But did you really set up a system that works the fact that when you left, everything collapsed, we need to interrogate that. What would have happened if everything was okay when you were there? Please take us through that movement out of Prasa, maybe a couple of months before you left, and why everything happened the way it happened.
Well, I think we are raising an important issue. And I think as a conversation, someone will say, well, maybe the system was not real. The fact that the man leaves and it collapses.
Yeah.
That those will take that angle. And I think they've got the right. They're asking the right question, in fact. Because we see, for me, I view Prasa as but one moment in my journey. I didn't start my career before Prasa. You'd recall I was the CEO of the South African Rail Commuter Corporation.
Yes.
Before that, I was the Deputy Director General in the Department of Public Transport. I was responsible for trains, buses, taxis, driving government strategy on public transport.
Right.
And of course, prior to that, I was involved with the restructuring of state-owned enterprises.
Right.
The Department of Public Enterprises. I was coordinating what we call the National Framework Agreement, having discussions with the unions about, exploring restructuring options. What do we do with ESCOM? What do we do with Transnet, GNL? All of those. So I was sitting there and at the heart of these processes. So I think let's go slightly back.
Yeah. Let's go back.
We use the word public transport loosely.
Yeah.
But South Africa never had a public transport system in a true sense of the word. Of course, if you look at the turn of the last century, you look at cities like Cape Town, Durban, Pretoria, they had trams, for example, and they had a train system. But it was quite a highly controlled system. That's the first thing. The second thing is that it was primarily a commuter system with mainly trains and buses being subsidized, and taxis were controlled. So no taxi will be licensed to go from Mamelodi to town at that time. So trains were subsidized, and then commuter buses, your Padcos, your Golden Arrow in Cape Town, those were subsidized. And the taxis had to fit into the stations. So if you look at that history, you have to salute the taxi industry because they had to fight to get into the system.
Yeah.
They had to open routes, which the government didn't didn't want routes there. So it was a system that was to get people to leave home from Soweto to Johannesburg and back again.
Right.
And we still see the features of that system.
Yeah.
Buses come. In fact, now that I'm in Parliament, when I go to Parliament in the morning, as you approach Cape Town, you see a lot of buses that are parked. They came between probably 5:30 and 9:00, but they can't move. They're sitting there. They're waiting for a peak hour. So we have a system that works for 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon. So what do you do with that asset? Trains, buses that are parked. Okay? And that also tells you the strength of the taxi industry, because in between, you have a situation where the bulk of your public transport assets are not utilized. Our cities are apartheid cities. People stay far from places of work. So you don't have the traffic throughout the day. So the cost of running that system is quite huge. Unlike many people say, but why don't we have underground trains? We don't have the densities in our cities, which means we don't have cities that are built in that way that people can go to an underground and then they don't have to use a car. So people rely. So the old system was subsidized buses and trains, and even a train system, you remember, it was segregated.
Yeah.
There was a third class for our people.
Yeah.
About the train with 12 coaches, 3 or 4 would be for black people.
Yeah.
And then there was the first class.
First class.
Which was for
Closer to the
exactly
to the head.
And you couldn't even do anything. So, and I'm surprised, because a lot of our people I read today, and also from some of our racist colleagues, you hear people say, but in 1994, we inherited a very good rail system. And we know that's not true.
Sure.
The truth of the matter is that the apartheid system ran a very reliable commuter rail system until 1988. But in the 1980s, late 1980s, they faced a lot of problems because of what was happening, the struggles of our own people, disinvestment, sanctions. So I think the government was facing a major fiscal crisis, and they couldn't provide the resources. They didn't have the resources to fight the war in Angola and Namibia, keep the soldiers in the townships, and also to ensure that Transnet, actually at that time there was no Transnet. There was what we call South African Transport Services, SATS. And that came after the South African Railway and Harbors. So SATS in 1988 was formed in 1982, but in 1988, the government decided to deregulate transport.
Yeah.
And by deregulating transport, it meant therefore that the trucks would come on the roadside.
Yeah.
Taxis would then come on the passenger side of things. And we saw trucks and buses and taxis on the rise during that time, after 1990. So deregulation was a major issue. But what deregulation did, and let me make this point.
The Welgemoed?
Let me make this point first, Isaac. The government took a decision to no longer invest in the rail system in 1988. If you look, for example, at the figures at that time,
yeah,
they plummeted. Okay? So it meant, therefore, that there was no more resources to invest in new trains, to invest in the signaling system, to build new or to expand the rail system, as it were. So So by 1994, and if you look between 1994 and 2000, the rail system was on a real decline in the country. What were the driving factors? There were four major driving factors. The first one was the disinvestment in railways. By that time, it was almost over 20 years, almost 30 years of underinvestment. So we're running a train system with coaches or trains that were built from the 50s, the 1960s, 70s. In fact, the only trains that were relatively new were bought in 1987, and these are the silver trains you see in Kailicha. And those trains were bought because they were used as an incentive to force people to relocate to Kailicha, and said we'll provide you with a train system as it were. But the commuter trains you have were very old. So when the apartheid government decided in 1980 that we deregulate, they also cut on investment in a significant way. So one of the major contributing factors was an old train system that we inherited. The second thing was the fact that the train system was run differently. South African Rail Commuter Corporation, and you remember, in 1991 they restructured South African Transport, or rather 1989, after the deregulation in 1988. They then restructured South African Transport Services. They created two companies, Transnet, as we know it today, and the South African Rail Commuter Corporation, which is the predecessor of PRASA. Yeah. Now the fleet was very old. The signaling, the technology that we're using on the signal ran to it dates back to the 1930s. So this was one factor. Underinvestment in our rail was a major issue, but that's not the only factor. The second factor was the fact that you had a model in terms of institutional framework where the capital was owned by the South African Rail Commuter Corporation, but the operations were sitting with Transnet. So it allowed for a lot of inefficiencies and everything. The third factor, of course, was the fact that was a contributing factor was a changing urban landscape. You had your railways built in a particular way. If you come from Pretoria, you have to go to Jamestown and everything into town. If you come from Soweto, you are working in either in Isando. You had to come via Johannesburg. So the train system was designed to go to the east because industries were there. But what happened after 1990? There's a massive growth in the north. Sandton, where we are now, there's a massive growth, but there's no train system. Who closes that gap? It's a taxi industry. So that explains why the taxi industry, because it's flexible. Yeah. Unlike rail, which is fixed. I mean, rail has got its own strength. It's a mass mover of people. On the freight side, heavy haul, you can't move some stuff, heavy stuff on the roadside. They have to be on rail. But rail is fixed. Whereas it doesn't give you the flexibility. Yeah. The taxi industry has the flexibility. Yeah. And it picks and drop. That is its strength. And when there's a new development, the taxi industry goes secure that route already and say the association, this is our route. And they run there because you didn't have. So you've got to go back to where we are. So when people argue and tell us and say, we inherited the best rail system in the country. Absolutely. Because it's crap. It's ahistorical. Yeah. It doesn't appreciate the fact that certain decisions were made. And I think that when I joined the South African Rail Commuter Corporation, rail was on the verge of collapse. I served on the board when I was TDG in transport. I also served on the board of the Rail Commuter Corporation. And you'd recall that one of the major things that happened around 2000, I think Dala Oma was the late Dala Oma was the Minister of Transport. Yeah. The Pretoria or the Bosman station was torched. Yes. We're beginning to see signs of frustrations with the train system that was not responding to the environment that was there. So when I joined, I was asked, in fact, I was resigning from government at that time. But I was told, you serve on the board, because at that time I had attacks on my home, taxi industry. Were unhappy because I was also running the taxi recapitalization program. So I said, no, I'm stepping down because I'm not safe in this environment. But the government said, no, the minister said, I've discussed your resignation with the president. You're a member of the board. The board had requested, because the act that established the South African Rail Commuter Corporation allowed for a board member to come and take and run the. So I was asked, you run this thing, and they gave me 3 specific mandates. 1, save Metro Rail from collapse, because it was on the verge of collapse. Number 2, they asked me, prepare rail for 2010 World Cup. And the third task they gave to me was that give us a long-term turnaround plan for rail. And they gave me 18 months to do all of these things. 18 months. And of course, that 18 months ended up being 10 years.
Yeah.
So to save Metro Rail was not an easy task.
Yeah.
I think you'd recall at that time that there was the people who were injured and killed in the rail system, particularly in the Cape.
Yes.
There were the Rail Action Commuter, the Rail Commuter Action Group.
Yeah.
Led by Mr. and Mrs. Van Minen, as well as COSA, to join hands to say, we've got to fight. They went to the Constitutional Court. In 2005, the Constitutional Court then said, Transnet and SRCC are responsible for safety.
Yeah.
And I went in there and I found this situation. So one of the first decisions I had to make was to say, we have to reach an out-of-court settlement with the Rail Action Committee, Rail Committee Action Group. We negotiated. We said we'll pay everyone who got injured, who was killed. We set aside 50 million, and we agreed on a safety plan. That was among one of the first things. We said, let's work together. And it was a turning point. I remember flying to Cape Town and being driven to meet with Mr. and Mrs. Van Minen. They lost their beloved son, who was, I think, stabbed in that environment. And aggrieved as they were, having lost their beloved son, but they used their energies in a positive way to say, let us then fight for the safety and improvement. And I happened to partner with them. We worked together. So it saved us quite a lot of resources. We paid. COSATU was happy with the settlement. Then the second thing, I had to look at how many trains do we have? Because some of the people that get injured are people who were falling from overcrowded trains. And I realized that something very interesting was happening. The SRCC had over 2 billion in reserves. And their financial statements were in very good condition. But they were refurbishing about 180 coaches a year, meaning the bulk of the coaches were outside service.
Yeah.
So when I arrived there, I asked, and I remember the CFO saying, you can't touch this money. And I used the word, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
I'd rather be fired for moving trains than people dying.
Yeah.
But we have good financial statements.
Yeah.
And I then called the industry that was involved in the refurbishment. I said, from now onwards, I want you to increase your capacity. We're going to commit 500 now, and then we're going to do 700 coaches a year. And it helped us. We recovered what was lost in the rail system in 1991. By 2008, we had more coaches on the system. We're running more passenger trips, which was unprecedented. And of course, we improved, and then I think that we improved on the rail safety, because one of the major concerns, people were getting killed, were getting injured. We then added on that. And we then put the long-term plan on what we needed to do.
Yeah.
But before we did that, I think one of our biggest achievements, a lot of people are here, they talk about 2010. You wouldn't have done 2010 without, at that time, we weren't even, we're still with the SRCC.
Mm.
We're busy forming PRASA. Because people think PRASA dates back to, no, we formed PRASA in March 2009. But prior to that, we had to prepare for 2010.
Yeah.
It was one of the mandates I was given. I remember when I joined and I invited some of our engineers, these educated people.
Yeah.
I met with them, and I remember a guy giving me a presentation and said that we'll not be able to achieve the 2010 objectives. And he said the last station that we'll do will be in October 2010. I was so shocked. I said, so I said, but are you going to finish the station after the entire World Cup is done?
Yeah.
So I then called these engineers. I said, but you guys, I cannot work with you because I'm not going to achieve my goals.
Yeah.
So I ended up firing most of those. And I said, I need to work with young engineers, bright guys who want to achieve something in their life.
Yeah.
The old guard was tired.
Yeah.
They were no longer able to think beyond. And let me tell you, on the eve of the Confederations Cup in 2009, I walked with the Deputy Minister of Transport and the Secretary General of FIFA.
Yeah.
We walked to the Doornfontein station because we wanted the numbers to come to Ellis Park. We couldn't put the huge numbers via through private cars or taxis.
Yeah.
So we built and modernized the station so that we can, in a peak hour, move, or during a soccer game, we will be able to, in the first hour, move about 40,000, 50,000 people. We upgraded the station. And Jerome Volke, who was the Secretary General of FIFA, he looked at me and said, how did you do it? How did you manage to deliver on this milestone? We moved presidents. Presidents in the continent came to see President Zuma.
Yeah.
And they were coming to attend the first 2010 World Cup World Cup in Africa.
Yeah.
They met the president in Pretoria. But you can just imagine moving these presidents into Soccer City. It was a nightmare. So we came up with a plan, a rail solution, so that from the union buildings they meet with Msholozi, and then they'll all go to Bosman Station. We had the Blue Train Lounge. Get in there. We then stage a train there, and we opened all the lines. So we didn't have to have all the presidents with their security driving in there. So we wanted the game to start and they can move into positions. And we moved them from Pretoria to Soccer City. Within an hour, there were helicopters following up. But we were moving a train at 160 kilometers and we got the president to the game. There was no disruption. So we built 300 stations to support the 2010 FIFA World Cup. We refurbished about 2,000 coaches during that time. So we modernized the system. And then, of course, we launched PRASA in 2009. PRASA was a big moment. For me, it was a personal achievement.
Yeah.
Because when I wanted to leave government, Minister Jeff Hadebe at that time was the Minister of Transport, said to me, well, you've been writing strategies about public transport.
Yeah.
And now you've got an opportunity to demonstrate and prove to us that all your ideas are working. So when we launched PRASA, it was not just a launch. We had to restructure the organization. We had to restructure, to negotiate with unions. It was not only the operations, it was also pension fund, medical aids. Workers were worried about that. We had to negotiate and reach an agreement. Now, after all of those, we succeeded and we launched PRASA. And we said this is a new beginning for passenger railways. We said it's going to be an instrument for public transport to transform commuter transport into a fully fledged public transport that will operate for 18 hours a day and making sure that we reserve the other hours for proper maintenance. So I think that has been the journey.
Shucks. This is crazy. This is hectic. I'm glad that you packaged it the way you did. I wanna go back on something that you started with. You said that In South Africa, we're using public transport as a concept, as a noun, very loosely. And as a result of that, we always behave like the taxi industry owes us something. And this is an industry that is occupying a space where government is unable to. And I don't think that we have given the taxi industry the credit it deserves, despite the challenges. So I want to talk about, can we now say the definition of public transport, if we were to benchmark it against developed economies, you would realize that that's where government invests. That's where government invests. And here in South Africa, you have majority of the people being moved by private entrepreneurs as opposed by government, because rail combined with the bus system is not able to move the number of people that the taxi industry is able to move. Do we still say that we have a public transport system in South Africa, even under the circumstances where almost 80% of the commuting public in the country is moved by private business?
Well, it's not a sustainable system. The current arrangement, it has to be changed. Part of what needs to be done on the rail side, you need to ensure that the rail increases its share of the public transport market in a big way.
Yeah.
And I think the new trains that are there now provide that space. You also have to extend some of the lines. You have to build new lines. So in its current form, if you look, for example, on the taxi industry, they operate even on routes where they shouldn't be operating. If you take, for example, if the rail system collapses on Mobopane or in Khayelitsha, the numbers are too huge. You see the number of taxis that are running there. They have to pick up people, drop, and then quickly try to get immediately. They have to drive on the yellow line. But let's accept, I think you are right. We do not recognize and appreciate the fact that without the taxi industry, most of our cities, the productivity of our cities, I mean, Johannesburg, Sandton City, it can't work without the taxi industry.
It can't.
If you take Durban, for example, Cape Town is slightly different. Rail historically has had a big share of the public transport market, but over the last 10 years, there's a decline. Plummeted as well, declined significantly. So you want your rail to be taking at least anything between 40 and 50% of your public transport market. If you don't have that, you have a problem. You also do not want a 16-seater to leave from Bara and take people to Durban. Currently, we have that. Now, to run that profitably, it's you either have to take out people and say, this is my route. I don't want any other person. Because then, but it inconveniences passengers. If you are talking about the true public transport, who must be the driver? It's the commuters. Something that you, the late Ntate Sangweni, championed. Because you want not to be operator driven, but must be passenger and commuter driven. You also want to restructure the bus industry as it is. You remember, this is in itself is something we inherited from apartheid. We haven't even restructured the service designs of these buses. They still service the same routes that they service. It's only now that they were given an additional R1 billion, but they're not responding to demand. Who must run some of these bus companies? It's the taxi industry. So part of that we have to do. Government has failed the taxi industry in a big way. We must accept that. And I'm glad that government doesn't go to court, because if they were to take the taxi industry to court, they will lose in a big way. If you look at Cape Town, the city of Cape Town is trying. but they're taking steps that they will not sustain. I mean, let's start first. A lot of the taxi industry or operators have applied for operating licenses. Government can't even uplift, or rather the operating licensing boards in the provinces can't uplift and issue licenses on time.
Just basic.
Just basic thing that is there. So many of the operators will tell you, but I applied for a license. Or at the time we're converting permits to operating licenses. You remember these were permits were radius based,
Yes.
whereas operating licenses fixed you on a particular route.
Yeah.
Those permits or those that were submitted at that time haven't even been issued to this very day.
No.
So you have a big problem. Of course, we need to get the taxi industry to operate on corridors where it is most efficient.
Yeah.
We have to use licensing as a tool to make sure that, taxis now, we have one size fits all.
Yeah.
It's either CI or it's a quantum.
Quantum, yeah.
Whereas if you look at the corridors that we run, there are times when we say, we are going to give you a license, but you have to operate a 23-seater here.
Yeah.
Not a 16-seater.
Yeah.
Or vice versa.
Yeah.
Or in some instances, we need a bus on this corridor. Because the transport system works efficiently if you deploy the right mode on a corridor. You can't put a taxi where a train is supposed to be. If you're moving 60,000 people in a peak hour like on Mabupan,
Yeah.
or now on the Mamelodi line, you put taxis, calculate how many taxis it require. You congest the roads, it won't work, and you increase the cost for commuters. So I think that the taxi industry built themselves. They fought with the apartheid government. They opened their routes. They fought for their space. And South Africa must honor them. I must also take the blame.
Yeah.
Because in 2004, or rather in 2003, government asked me to review the taxi recap. We did everything right, but there's one thing that we didn't do, because we allowed government finances to dictate the strategy.
Tell me how did
we didn't put capital. The reason why we had to restructure the taxi recap was because the government didn't have sufficient money. At the time, there was a tender. The tenders came at around 40 billion.
Yeah.
In a bigger scheme of things, not a lot of money, because in the long run,
yeah,
we only had 7 billion rands. So that is why we had to bring the scrapping allowance. But it didn't give financial support. We didn't regulate the price of the new taxi vehicles in the market.
Yeah.
So without doing that,
there was a misfit.
And what is happening now is that a lot of taxi operators cannot afford even their vehicles.
Yeah.
They're surviving through, as always.
Yeah.
The taxi guys, like they would say in Afrikaans, boer alt en maak 'n plan.
Make a plan.
So they always make a plan. They've always been ahead of their times. They know business. And I think that we must salute them. But we have to move to a point where the taxi industry, and as we build a new public transport system, is included in a subsidized system, and they must complement the rail system.
Yeah.
Because the rail system, I mean, and in our country, we are very fortunate. A lot of people have traveled with Minister Hadebe from Soweto we got into a train in Naledi to Park Station.
Park Station.
Yeah. What was interesting is that I said, well, you must buy your own ticket. So he had only 100 rand note. So he went to buy a ticket at Naledi. So they gave him 88 rand 50 as a change.
Yeah.
So he then asked me, but do you think your lady can calculate? Well, I mean, she can't count. And he said, how much did she say? 88.50. I said, that's right. He says, how cheap it is.
Yeah.
I said, yes. Every month, if somebody buys a monthly ticket, they're paying about 160 a month. Because when you pay a monthly ticket, you basically pay for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
The other week is effectively an incentive for you to use the train system. Okay? So when you use a daily ticket, it's expensive because you need a lot of security
Yeah.
to chase people, because they'll buy one ticket and hoping that when they come back, there's no security.
Yeah, because it will be after 5, after 6.
After 7, they're waiting.
Yeah.
Oh, there's not enough security.
Yeah.
I can get. So policing that system. Now, how do you spend a lot of money on security policing? Policing, what is it called? About on average, I think it was about 8 rand a day.
Yeah.
So the system is very cheap, and we can utilize that. We can get the rail system working. Unfortunately, it's not yet at that level.
Will it get there, Lucky?
Well, I see the Minister of Transport celebrating that we have recovered all the some of the routes, 39 out of 40.
Yeah.
But when you look on the passenger trips, and I don't want to be seen to be praising myself, but the rail system with old trains, we're doing 540 million passenger trips a year. Literally every trip you come.
And where are we sitting now?
This is in 2014. 2015 it was about 523 million passenger trips. Last year, and then of course 3 years after I've left, it plunged to 200 million passenger trips. Last year it was 39.9, so 40 million. And when they came to brief us in Parliament, they said that they want to do 70 million this year. So, and this is a strategy issue. We've got new trains. Who are doing this with the old trains?
Yeah.
I never had the privilege, even though I signed the contract, I bought the new trains.
Yeah.
But I never had the privilege to run them. Because when the first train was delivered, it was at the time when I was leaving.
Yeah.
But we do far more numbers. Yes, there was COVID. But afterwards, I think if you look at what they did, they bought all these trains. But then they cancelled all the infrastructure modernization. So as the trains are delivered, we can't run most of them. Most of them are parked.
Yeah.
Because the signaling system is not operating at that particular level. In some instances, the infrastructure is in a bad condition that you run a new train at 30 kilometers per hour. So it's much slower than even the old
one, yeah.
So you are not getting the benefits of doing that. But most importantly, for me, government is chasing targets that we've restored 39 or 40 of the main corridors. That is very important. But the country has since in the last 10 years also changed. There are opportunities for new corridors, for new growth, and they haven't pursued any of that. So I think that we invested in quite a lot, and not only on the passenger side, even on the freight side. You know, Isaac, one of the major things South Africans do not realize in the period between 2007 to 2014, there was a transport revolution in the country. I was buying new trains when I was CEO of Prasa.
Yeah.
We were bringing in the new modern signaling system.
Yeah.
We were modernizing the electrical system. We were doing all sorts of things, that even operating system, including communications in the railway system. Transnet was running a demand strategy. They were buying new locomotives for the rail business. They were investing in the ports. AXA, leading up to 2010, had spent 20 billion to modernize and even build to rebuild our new airports. I mean, if you ask some of the young guys here, you ask them about Jan Smarts, they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Because they see a modern OR Tambo International Airport.
Yeah.
If you look at what used to be DF Malan in Cape Town, and you look at the modern Cape Town International Airport, if you look at King Shaka International Airport, you know, the relocation from the old Durban International Airport to King Shaka. A lot of people don't even understand the significance, what it represents for the future of KZN in our country. It was during that time that the deep water port was built in Muha. So when you look at that, and how much were we spending as a country on infrastructure when President Zuma was president? over 840 billion rands at that time. Okay? And there was a transport revolution until 2014. In 2014, the political environment was changing in the country. We started using words like state capture. And the guys like us were seen as enemies. And what did we do? When I left and we spoke about my resignation, I read in the newspapers, Montana was fired by Prasa. And the newspapers were repeating this thing as a fact.
What is the true story?
Well, in 2015, March 2015, 15th March 2015, I went to the chairman of the board and submitted my letter of resignation and said, now I need to step down. I'd taken into account quite a lot of things.
That was 10 years after.
This was just already 10 years with me being in the. If you take Prasa and its predecessor, 10 years in that space. Restructuring the rail industry. But I knew that I've done something big with the acquisition of new trains, and I was in a big fight. The ANC leaders were fighting with me day and night. They wanted me to cancel the contract. I refused.
Why?
Because what they were asking us to do was unlawful. And I asked them, if you want us to cancel the trains, put it in black and white. They wanted us to cancel the Gibela contract.
Right.
Because the French are involved, but they were referring to our people are not involved in that contract. So I said, no, but these trains are for our country. It is to serve our people. So I signed the contract. People were angry. Ministers were angry with me. I was even told I'm so arrogant, I don't listen to the leadership. I refused to cancel the contract. And the daggers were out for me.
As you should expect.
Well, I expected that, but I've signed. And when Pravin Gordhan, may he so rest in peace, refused to gazette because he was the Minister of Finance when we did this in 2014. He refused to sign or to gazette as a Minister of Finance that the National Revenue Fund will provide for these new trains. It was a big fight until the last month because the tender validity would come to an end in April 2014. And I had to go to the president. I said, we can't have this thing. And I had to explain myself to government, the process, what we did. And when I demonstrated that it was a Prasa-led project, but involving other government departments, Treasury, Department of Transport, DTI, and that these were people who evaluated the tender, and that some parts of the contract were even drafted by Treasury. I won the battle, and he gazetted it. And the day he gazetted it, we celebrated at Prasa. But I called my employees and said, this is the biggest victory for the commuting public of South Africa. But I've trampled on the foot of wrong people. I know that they're going to come for me. So when that process started, I then submitted my letter of resignation and said, look, I've been here for long, let me go. I saw Popo Molefe and say, here's a nighttime reading. Both of us were on our way to the memorial service of the late Minister Collins Chabane. So I said, read it. In the evening, he read it. I was offering to resign. That I don't want to extend my contract when it expires. In fact, I want to leave in a few months' time. I asked in my letter, I said, my contract provides for a notice period of 3 months. I said, please, I'm willing to give you 6 months. Appoint a CEO designate, your own person. But for that 6 months, this person must walk with me. When I go to a meeting, he's here. When I go to the bathroom, he's here. Everything I do in that 6 months, because he must understand how the system works. It's not the old apartheid system. We changed the operations. We're managing the dependencies differently.
Right.
So I said, if you don't do that, then I've just signed all big contracts. New trains, 53 billion rands. about 18 billion was going to signaling. I said, you can't. There must be a proper handover. Or else Prasa will collapse. And we agreed. The board met 15 days later after my letter of resignation. They issued a statement accepting my resignation. And of course, they made some very nice comments.
They spoke nice about you there.
Nice words, yeah. They said on the 1st of April in a statement, we wouldn't have asked for a better a person to drive the modernization of our railways.
Right.
And they thanked me for the service to the country. And then we're then preparing for the process. Of course, April passed, May, June, when I was in the middle of my notice period. I'd resigned, they've accepted. We started fighting with the board. We fought over a number of things. The South African Fence and Gate, for example, had paid money to the foundation of Popo Molefe, and they were fighting for it to be paid, to extend the contract. I said, no, it can't be done. So you can see it, for example, that, and I asked Justice Zondo, can you go and take the bank statements of the Popo Molefe Foundation Trust and look at them? You'll see that companies contracted to Prasa were paying money into that, and that after they've paid, their scope of work was increased. And I say, you can't have a corrupt system like that. And I also say, look at when Popo also was appointed chairman of Transnet. He did the same. A law firm like M&S.
Yeah.
They paid just over $1 million in tranches of 350, 350, 350. They'll say we are contributing to the foundation's work. But it's a major conflict.
It is a conflict.
When you are a chairman and companies contracted to your companies. Now, no one has told me, say, like you, a company that you're involved with was awarded contracts at Prasa.
Yeah.
So we started fighting. And of course, on the 15th of July, we had a board meeting, and I had to leave the board meeting because of a family emergency. My uncle, in fact, was hospitalized and subsequently passed on.
Man.
So I left the meeting. We had finished every item. There was one agenda item of the meeting: contract of employment of the CEO. Because it was not referring to me.
Yeah.
Because
to the new one. Yeah.
It's a new one.
Yeah.
So I then went to the chairman and said, look, let me go home and attend to my uncle because I'm told it's critical. You as a board, you don't need me to discuss this item.
Yeah.
Because you're appointing your own person.
Yeah.
So as I was picking up my bag, I got a message that my uncle is late. And I went back to the chairman. Chairman, it's too late, but I still have to run and run to the hospital where my uncle is still there, see him for the last time. We agreed, and he said condolences. So I went to home, I went to my uncle's house, started discussing with the family the preparations. When I went back home in the evening, it was after midnight, the guys, they took a decision that I should no longer serve the remainder of the notice period.
Which is another 3 months or so.
Which is another 3 months or so. And they said, no, we'll pay you the remainder of your notice period. We don't need, and they appointed someone. But it is what they did afterwards. They went to cancel a lot of operational contracts. One of the contracts, of course, that they look at was on maintenance. So what we had, the situation that we created leading up to to the 2010 World Cup, where we refurbished from 180, 500, 700, they went to cancel all of that. Because they said, no, these are like his people.
Yeah.
So if you have a country that is run that way, you have a problem. They then targeted some of the most skilled and experienced executives and managers. They threw them out. And then they appointed Werksmans or worksman's attorneys to say investigate the new contract the new tender train contract and other contracts that we had. So they did that. So they were doing it, and then that's how they collapsed the business. Let me give you a specific example. Popo had left, I think that May Kweyama, was the chairman of the board. The auditor general said some of the companies, security companies that were appointed, were not appointed regularly. Their contracts may be. And let me explain what that means. It meant contracts that we inherited when we took over Metro Rail from Transnet. We didn't take steps to regularize them in terms of the new SCM policy of PRASA. So they were still signed from the old contract. So that's what the auditors meant. So the answer is to regularize them. But these guys were so excited.
They found something against you.
No, they said, no, it was not against me. But the board said under Kweyama. Said, no.
But they would have run, you would have taken them from Transnet. So they ran under your leadership.
Exactly.
For a period until you left.
Until I left.
Right.
Yes.
So whatever else, whether you call it oversight or it was not a priority at the time, but that contract was under your leadership.
Correct. But you remember, let's deal with the circumstances. When we took over Metro Rail, Shosholoza Main, SRCC, the law requires us to honor each and every contract.
Okay.
So if Isaac was employed at Metro Rail, for the first 18 months, I can't change his contract. And then after 18 months, I can negotiate. If he says, no, but this is my contract of employment, that's what it is. For example, you hear in the news, everyone says, like he employed his engineer, Daniel Mtimkulu. But Mtimkulu was also part of Metro Rail. He was transferred with 8,000 employees from Metro Rail to the new Prasa.
Right.
So all those employees were transferred, and the law requires that their conditions must not be changed. I can't say Isaac today didn't have a degree when he was employed by Metro Rail 10 years ago. I didn't have that right. The law says, no, you are inheriting Metro Rail. So the security contracts were part of that. IT contracts, finance contracts that we have. So you have to allow a period of 18 months and then start to renegotiate or restructure them. But when you form the organization, you have to take zonke. So all of them came in there. But the excitement in the board was that, no, but these are like his people. Okay? They didn't know the history.
Right.
So what did they do in 2019? They decided that all these security contracts must be cancelled.
Relax.
So they cancelled all the contracts. Okay? They're corrupt. And these are like his people. Or some of them, they said, these are MK people. You know what happened? 2020K. So everyone was asked to stay at home. And there's no security in the rail system. The criminals had they just had
It was a feast.
It was a feast. They took every electrical component you'd find on the rail system. We had invested over 30 billion on the infrastructure alone. So let me tell you what it means. Prasa was paying not even over 100 million a year on these security contracts. And the board decided that we are gonna cancel these contracts so that we are seen to be regular, save 100 million rands, but their decision destroyed the country. We lost over 30 billion rand worth of rail infrastructure in a period of 2 years. So when they say, the Minister of Transport, Barbara Creasy, says, we are trying to recover, it's because no one is held accountable for making a decision that destroyed the rail system in the country. So what remained of the rail system? So even the new signaling system we introduced was stripped. We had in Calfontaine built one of the major signaling centers in the country. The best signaling technology to catch up with what was happening around the world. It was destroyed during that time. So they are trying to recover because they made crazy decisions. So that's what happened.
But then I'm hearing you to be, this is something really big. I'm hearing you to be saying that the rail system, passenger rail system in the country collapsed. The collapse was man-made. It is the collapse where egos were at play. The passenger rail system in the country collapsed because those who were close to the powerful were not found to be benefiting from whatever that's happening there.
Absolutely.
So
we had to replace.
So we dropped from almost 550 million passenger trips
a year,
and we are now celebrating. We are trying to get to 50 million. We are celebrating that, and we have not spoken about the people who brought us here.
Absolutely. Well, let me tell you another interesting thing, because you know history, or rather, let me put it, the universe operates in a particular way. When these contracts were, one of the companies took Prasa to court I think it was in 2018.
Yeah.
In the Western Cape High Court. You know who was the presiding judge?
Tell me.
Judge Hlophe.
President.
My party leader in parliament.
Yeah.
And at that time, Judge Hlophe warned and say, I hear you, Prasa, but where's the contingency plan? How can you cancel and not put anything in place? I'm not going to say more. I'll just ask you, go and look at the judgment that Judge Hlophe made, and look at the reaction of the Department of Prasa and the Department of Transport. They ridiculed the judge. Okay? He warned them, you can't cancel this contract
without a contingency.
And the Auditor General was not saying cancel. He says that these contracts are irregular because they haven't been regularized. But it doesn't mean cancel them. So, but this guy is because, we got, ultimately we find like they canceled these contracts. The system was left open. So you are right. It was man-made and no one has been held accountable. We are spending billions to build what I built 10 years ago. Okay?
So we are reinvesting.
We are paying, no.
We still have reinvestment.
We are paying even 3 times more. What did we say when we were investing for 2010? We said we are going to create a lasting legacy.
Yes, that's what we were building.
And it took a crazy decision in 2018 and 2019 by the board of Prasa to destroy everything that has been built. And you know what surprises me though is that when you fight with the establishment politically, we have a cabinet. The cabinet can see the train system is being destroyed.
Yeah.
They don't come out and speak about it. In the same way that a journalist write and say that there are tall trains, tall locomotives. Everyone believes that there are tall trains. Okay?
Yeah.
But Prasa is funded, is subsidized by government. The Minister of Transport doesn't call me and say, hey, what is happening? And you know why he doesn't ask me? Because the Minister of Transport traveled with me and Popo Molefe on these new locomotives. They didn't bring down any electrical wires. They didn't hit any bridge. We used them for over a year. They accumulated 76,000 kilometers on the network. Then somebody wakes up and say, "That's all." Okay. I even took journalists on this to say, let's travel on these locomotives so that we can see. I even said these are one of the best. And let me tell you, there's a report before a court in Pretoria, written by a rail expert from abroad. He said the best locomotives that would have been bought. I now got clips of these locomotives being tested between East London and Bloemfontein, because Prasa now wants to bring them back. Okay? But 7 of them are being sold already. They're operating between Tanzania, I think Tanzania and Zambia. They're doing an enormous work because those are workhorses.
Yeah.
They're modern. What we wanted to do was to reduce the travel times for people traveling between Joburg and Durban by train, Johannesburg and East London, or Johannesburg and Bloemfontein. We wanted to cut that because we didn't have to change locomotives on the way.
Yeah.
We had 2 locals pulling these trains one way. Our operating costs for running the long distance trains, we're cutting that by half because we don't have to have 3 drivers every time we pick up 3 drivers. We have to have a kumbi to go and pick up those drivers at their homes. So it was an archaic system. So these modern locomotives, but because the big boys didn't win the tender, they came up with a story. These are toll trains. And I asked, the first train was launched in my absence, by Popo Molefe. He praised the. I approached the court and say, can you look at what Popo said? Because I applied to the court. Can I come in as a friend of the court to help you?
Yeah.
The court said no ways, because that evidence was not before the courts. Okay. And when the judge, I think it was Judge Francis J. at the High Court in Johannesburg, initially they said the trains are tall and that there was corruption. When he saw the facts that this story can't be sustained about tall trains, in his judgment, he says a very interesting thing. He says, I'm a review judge to look at whether the processes were followed.
Right.
Okay? Whether the tender was run in a proper way. Whether the product is right or wrong or suitable is for another day. Yet the application was brought on the basis that the locomotives were tall.
He does not pronounce himself on this issue.
Because he knew, politically, he knew that if he has to say that. So the issue is, South Africans have been taken on a ride. I mean, you can just imagine, for someone like me, I built Prasa. I was asked by government, build Prasa. We didn't know it. I actually didn't even like the name Prasa.
Yeah.
I said we must call it a public transport corporation, because in my vision at that time, we wanted to ensure that we provide frequent public transport in the rural areas, that the buses and the trains under Prasa can also be used into that. It shouldn't just be narrowly. But when we did the law, it was then agreed, and the Department of Transport wanted a limited thing. But I think today, if we want to build Prasa, we have to change and review its legal mandate, ensure that it serves the people of South Africa, including the people in the rural areas. It has got buses, it's got trains. Prasa wants to dispose of the old trains. And I was asked, what do you think? I said, it's madness. You should have a 3-layered network, and these old trains can still be used. Yeah, some of them can be bought and used in the continent, but the bulk of them are still in a condition where they can be used for the benefit of people. Currently, people are either walking long distances, or children are transported on the back of buggies. When we have a solution, and so Prasa refurbished the trains, the old trains, they park them. I think this has been a story now.
Yeah.
You spend 7.5 billion rands.
Yeah.
It's wasted if they're parked. But if you say, I'm going to create a service between Umtata and East London, or between within Limpopo. You know, we did a transport study for Limpopo. The possibilities, the numbers of people who are not traveling between Johannesburg, Limpopo and Johannesburg, who are traveling within Polokwane itself, or rather Limpopo.
Limpopo as a province, yeah.
It's huge, and we've got an existing network. We enhance that, we deploy some of those trains. People will be able to travel very free or at the nominal amount.
Yeah.
So it was man-made, and we are not able to recover. Okay? And I see every time the celebration, we've launched, we've also received a new train from Gibet. But some of those trains can't even run, they're parked because the infrastructure is not ready. Some of them were parked, yet they had warranties. So I think that we need to think differently. We need to expand the network. Even if we say, look, this is our A network, B network, C network.
Right.
And you know, one of the beauties about the railway is that where people jump or onto a train or off a train, they do that on a platform. It means you can put trains that are not the same. That on the other side of the platform, those who are connecting on this one jump over,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Yeah.
So we have to sort out the ticketing stories. We have to connect with the how train, because how train is persisting to run a separate, a standalone project. We mustn't accept that. If we say we want to build a proper public transport in the country,
Why do you want to have classes?
why do you want to have this type of? Well, it can be. The how train can be the base
Yeah.
for our high-speed rail network, but connecting with the rest.
Yeah.
Why do you run empty buses every day when the taxis can do that much better if you've contracted it to them in a proper way? So there are things that we should be doing as a country. We are not doing it because we have to break out of this notion of state capture. That there are people responsible for state capture, and we don't even look. Let me tell you, Transnet now has employed, I asked the Minister of Transport a question for written reply, and she responded to me. And I asked, how did you appoint Alstom? Alstom is at the heart of Gibela. Alstom is also involved with the How train. They're now appointed by Transnet. And if you look, I'll share the response from the minister. So there was no tender for Alstom. Okay? They were appointed on a confined basis.
What does that mean?
Well, it means there's no tender. Is a beautiful word for saying there's not. It could be justified. Okay?
Unsolicited.
Unsolicited thing. But you know what they said to me? Everything that didn't go through a tender was corrupt. In 2010.
When it was your time.
They invited Tulima Donse, investigate, these things are lawful. And she came and pronounced herself on those issues. Today, they appoint companies without following any process. And the amount is not 100 million, it's not 100 rands. It runs into billions of rands. So she gave me and I appreciate the fact that she was honest. But I asked her another big question. Aren't you concerned that at a time when we are trying to rebuild our rail engineering sector,
Right,
you are taking a company from abroad and is controlling how train,
Prasa,
and Transnet.
now Transnet.
And some of the work can be done by local companies, as it were. So you could see that we've gone on a journey of madness. So we need to say at some stage, the madness must stop. Let's focus on the real issues. And I think that when I look back, you know, I don't regret the years I spent at Prasa. They were amazing years. I was able to put strategy into action. I was able to do new things there. But I also made a lot of enemies, particularly from the leadership in the country, cabinet ministers. I mean, the 53 billion rand contract I signed, it angered a lot of people. And that is why I had to leave Prasa as a result. But then they decided that instead of moving forward, I always said to Popo Molefe, when I gave you my letter of resignation, I was basically in your house or home.
Yeah.
and I was bidding you farewell, and you said to me, "You are free to go." Dimtsari di bofile.
Yeah.
But as I was walking towards the gate, you let loose, and those dogs came for me. For an entire 10 years, they were throwing all sorts of stones. It was a major offensive. They were writing 3 stories a week, on all the wrong things I've done. I remember my late mom asked me in Xitsonga, "Ngwananga, nyimpi leyi ya yini? Nyimpi leyi yi ta hela ne?" So she was asking me, what is the fight all about? When will it end? And you know what was my response in 2015 to my late mom? I said, "Mom, it will take 10 years, because it's not an issue of criminality. It's a big political fight, but also it's a spiritual fight." And I'm not surprised when I see, there are times my aunt, when she will I say it in the Queen's language, but my brother's sister, ke Rakgadi. And Rakgadi says, ngwanaka, ke a bona dilo di a senyega. And she says to me, when a child is born, o tla diatla tsa hae di kwetse bjang.
Right.
Those are your gifts and your talents given to you by God, by the universe, given to you by your ancestors. You're born like this. And the journey of your life is about that.
Yeah.
So he says, don't look back, you must look forward with pride. And that is why these guys are having difficulties fixing this thing, because they thought they could just replace you. But that was gift, that's a task that you have to perform for the people of South Africa. And when I look at the trains, and then for some reason, when I come out of the parliamentary village in Cape Town, these trains always, they come as, they seem to be making a statement. When I'm in Pretoria, I drive home, I drive under the bridge in next to Loftus Station. That train passes there in front of me. And I ask myself, what does that mean? Why every time I pass, the new modern trains are passing? And so my beloved mom, when she left this world, she saw everything, and she said to me, again in Xitsonga, say, put your trust in God, in prayers. Akulangutisa le ntshaveni le, o khongela Xikwembu. Swi tiva hinkwaswo. And when I look back, for me, I'm proud. Some people ask me, some of our old employees, can you go back to the old days? Can you come back? I can't come back. Life has moved on.
You've moved on.
I can share my experiences, my knowledge. The sad thing, though, is that this country decided to protect criminals rather than and demonize some of us. When I hear Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi talking about what is going on, I say, oh, wow, I know it's a fact.
Yeah.
Some of the things that he's been talking about.
Yeah. So I can only at this stage I always sit here and I'm in charge. This is my studio. Nobody touches me here. But today I'm sitting here and I am just taking in so much. But I'm taking a lot of things that you're saying with a lot of pain. I'll tell you. Because you are revealing to us and the people of the country that the problems that we're sitting with today could have been avoided.
Absolutely.
You're also saying that The fact that there are people who are walking distances to and from work. This situation, if the leaders did what they were supposed to do, that wouldn't have been the case. But what is sad, though, Lucky, is the fact that we are planning on, for this problem, the commuter problem, to be properly addressed in South Africa. We will need to understand passenger mobility patterns and the data that this country does not have properly.
Well, some of it is there.
Some of it is there.
If you take, for example, what you call integrated transport plans from the cities, they've got lots of valuable information from a planning point of view, but not on the technical side. First and foremost, we need a passenger or commuter movement that must champion these things. Secondly, and I think it's something that you raised at that time, the issue of a passenger charter. The rights of the passengers in the transport space. So that you need to have, because you then starting to have a situation where the commuter and the passenger is taking charge. So you have a commuter passenger driven system. All the improvements and innovations must emanate from there.
Hold it right there, because over the last, I think since 2003, I have had a burden in my heart and soul that says, at what point does a commuter have a voice and control the quality of service that they receive? We have spoken about the charter. We have spoken. We wanted to raise a voice. I remember I sat there, Babu Sangwen, he liked KFC. He liked KFC and pap. So when you go to his school there in Orange Farm, he would order KFC and pap for you. And in everything that he spoke about, he would always say, what can we do to give an ordinary commuter, regardless of their class in society, just the right and the respect, dignity that they needed? He died. He passed on today, and we've not achieved that. Government is still battling with these things. But at the heart of all of this, Lucky, is that we are still dealing with egos. The problems that we have in South Africa under this since 1994, we are dealing with personalities and egos. If Lucky is not the one who's driving it, sometimes the good ideas are pushed back because they are coming from a person of the wrong profile. You don't come from the correct organization, therefore we cannot hear you.
Or faction
in the same organization. You know what I'm saying? So there has always been this kind of things. Is there hope? I wanna make a commitment, because I know that you're traveling. I can't. We would have to have a different conversation on this. We dealt a lot with Prasa, which is what I wanted, and one of the few things that I want my viewers to take home today is that your problems that you have today, please note, are created by men and women, and some of them are still alive. Some of them, we have not as a country held them accountable. And we are getting excited today that we are spending 38 to 40 billion rand. It's the 30 billion rand of what we were not supposed to spend on. We're supposed to spend that 30 billion rand to enhance the foundation that was supposed to be there already. But egos.
Well, let me tell you, as my parting shot, we live in Gauteng. Everyone was excited when the private car lobby was pushing on the e-tolls and all sorts of things. Now the e-tolls have been dismantled or disabled. The problem has not been solved. In fact, what we have done is that we are paying so to pay so, but that money is still being spent in the same way. The big problem that we must discuss in Gauteng, Gauteng is very small.
Yeah.
And it's getting densified day by day.
Yeah.
Are we going to run cars in the way that we are running today? Okay? As we become, because if we manufacture products here, but to take them out, it takes you three hours because of the congestion.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
The government policy should be about promoting public transport over private car.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you shouldn't have a car. But there are corridors where we say, look,
Here,
we've provided here, we put new trains, modern trains, we put the how train. For example, the people in the west of Johannesburg, if you put a monorail system or a light rail system, they're able to go to Johannesburg efficiently or connect from Four Ways to Pretoria in a very efficient way. Surely that if we've provided that transport, where if you insist on using a private car, you must pay the price for it.
yeah. Yeah.
So government today is afraid to make a logical decision. But let me tell you, from where I sit, this province will not afford to subsidize roads and public transport at the same time. In fact, we are running an inequitable system now where poor households rely on all trains and reliable train or public transport operations, and we subsidize. If you look at the number of people who uses the how train,
Yeah.
it's a very good system.
Yeah.
But we are not adding the numbers.
Yeah.
And we must make a bold decision to make the how train a mass transit system, open new routes, or allow it to intersect so much with metro rail and taxis, and then ensure that people are able to move. But if we think that the rise of private cars in Gauteng is a solution, in the long run, it is not. And we must start to have the conversation. And I think I urge you to perhaps invite the Transport MEC to say what is the integrated transport network for Gautrain, for Gauteng, and how are we going to fund it, and how do we ensure that both poor and well-to-do households or income groups are given equal access. But currently what we do, we subsidize a small number of motorists, a small number of Gautrain users at the expense of many poor households who do not even have access to a car in this province. So the cancellation of the e-tolls was a step. It didn't result in in what we call sustainable transport solutions, as we are still at the same point we were. That is why people say the more things changes, the more they remain the same.
The same.
So that's where we are. We spend billions, but we haven't improved much because of the madness that we're involved in. So stop the madness. That would be my parting shot.
I like that. I love that. So we have almost 14 million vehicles in South Africa. Almost 60% of them are in Gauteng.
Absolutely.
The number of passengers that Bara see compared to Cape Town and OR Tambo combined.
Yes.
Bara sees more, there's more traffic at Baragwana than these ones combined.
Exactly.
And yet government, in terms of subsidy and the investment, spends a lot more on both these institutions than what you see at. Now this speaks to the value of a black man. You as a passenger, this investment tells you how government looks at you. And I'm going to drop it there and promise you that we're going to come back with Lucky. He is definitely, if it means that I must go to Cape Town to go speak to him, I am going to come there because there's a lot that still needs to be done here. But for today, I just want to say thank you very much for spending the time with me. We only dealt with one part of the three that we wanted to deal with. But thank you very much for spending your time with us. And thank you guys for staying with us the whole time. It is jaw-dropping kind of conversation, right? But we learned we're gonna package this. You know how we're gonna give it to you. Please keep supporting us. Give us those gifts. And read a little more. There's a lot more that we need to share in public transport. And I think we're not doing justice because we just go on every day as if things are okay, and they are not. So for today, I want you to just say thank you to the people there. If there's one thing that you want them to know today about you, Isaac, I won't leave here without saying this. Please say that and say thank you to the people that are viewing and looking at us now.
Well, thanks very much. I think this wonderful platform, I think that for me, we need that diverse views and experiences. And I must also think, by the way, last week, 15th of July, marked 10 years since I left Prasa. Literally on that day.
15.
10 years.
Sure.
And I know that many of the people out there have given me the support. They've been a pillar of strength. I mentioned my family.
Yeah.
But I know the public out there. In fact, when I walk around in the streets, whether it's in Mamelodi or in Cape Town, I get I get positive feedback.
Right.
So thanks very much for the encouragement, for the support. But most importantly, you are the true makers of history. In as much as we've got leaders, we've got political organizations and all of those things. Change in history, when you look throughout history, it was not only the kings and the queens. It's only when the masses of the people, and in this particular case, the commuters in our commuter transport system, who must basically start to organize themselves and make sure that we bring the change we want to see. And I think there's quite a lot of possibilities,
yeah,
for meaningful change. And I think that it's possible to build a modern public transport system that operates all the hours. You don't have to have as a young teenager or a young woman, you don't need somebody to come and pick you up in their car to go out if we have a system working.
Yeah.
Working. We know that you can go out, have fun, come back. The system is safe. 2, 3 a.m. is still operating.
Yeah, man.
That's the kind of thing that we dream about. If you go to the rural areas, we've got the possibility to build a high-speed train. So somebody who lives a father who comes from Newcastle doesn't have to sleep in a hostel here. He can take a train and have dinner with his children at home in the evening. 7 p.m. is at home. He can spend time with the children, check on their homework and all of those things. So you'll never bring change without dreaming. And one of the major things, I think, in all the things I've achieved, small as they may be, but I always dream.
Yeah.
On this particular day, I dreamt of, I was told, without some of these engineers, the train system will not work. And I slept at my parents' home. I dreamt and my parents were telling me, my grandfathers were telling me, hey, batlanga wena banla.
Proper.
The next day, I'd fired all these engineers. And let me tell you, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't achieve half of the things that I've done.
They would have blocked you.
They would have blocked me, and I would have prayed, worshipped the people that I shouldn't. So sometimes you must dream, you must follow your heart, and make the changes and not follow rules.
Yeah.
Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi has shown us that there are protocols.
Yeah.
But there are moments where you have to cross the line so that there's change. And he's shown the example. Let's follow him and take the same route so that we can change our lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As we sign out, thank you so much. Till we meet again, thank you for the gifts. Thank you for everything else. We appreciate you so much. This was big for me. Tim, I'm out.
Yo, en het rijdt.